thought we were going to see so many people. We got the 6:30 train thinking we wouldn't even get on it.
And was it fairly empty?
Well, it's a commuter train, but we were surprised at how few.
You were like, there's not enough wellies on this train.
To be fair, I looked at the train and I'm like, I've got no idea where I'm going. I wouldn't have a clue. No, so I'm kind of like, we must go into the ticket. Where I need to go, picking up some air phone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people came on coaches, didn't they?
We're just not very knowledgeable about how. You did ask them. I'm not. No, I would have got very lost. I wouldn't have got that far.
So you're quite used to Labour.
Protesting for a while against all the changes. It's never been anything quite like this. Everybody has to stand together. The public support as well.
I think it's the education piece. Once they realise this is actually all about control, this is about taking the land. This isn't about tax. Sorry, what was that?
That knowledge has been lost in such a short period of time. Generations, generations that knowledge has been lost. And the disconnect is being lost.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a lonely way. It's just really lonely. You have all the right. It's impressive. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we always think we put Bill on to something very often. You know, we spend so much time working on our own, even if we are in town. There's such a selection.
Any other food bank donations? There's another food van down by Parliament Square. So anyone else who's got food to donate, either hold on to it or make your way once we finish down to Parliament Square. So that's down behind you where you're all stood now. That's where the next food wagon's going to be. We're going to make a start at past. We're just getting our first 4 ready and we're going to make a start.
It'd be quite fun to have had a group of I'd be like, right,
that bloke on about later. He got destroyed.
No money for the crazy holes, plenty of money for farming for reward. And they're going to be taking it all off your kids' heads, so they can spend it on themselves. Yeah.
That's all they have to do. I'm feeling we're going to casualties.
See any other way there?
It's like blends in so well.
Over there.
Yeah,
don't worry, I won't take you there.
I know, I've done it, yeah. Well, the police just told me they reckon they'll move about. Right, is it okay for me to go through? Excuse me.
It's King Charles.
There you go. Front page of the Times.
Well done, outside the capital.
Can I shuffle you up a little bit?
I don't know where you're going to find that. Where are you going to find that?
No, it wasn't just we go in there. I was just thinking somewhere not too much. Just the other side of Trafalgar Square.
What about the cafe at the top of
Shard. Where?
Follows?
That's miles away.
It's just the other side of okay. So
Yeah, but that's fine, yeah. Okay. Cafe at the top of Foyle. Good approach then. Yes, you can slip in a bit of book purchasing.
Yeah, there is space.
My husband had been to he'd gone down to the third quarter and following Philip, that's why. And so they walked. We live up in
Not making much progress here. Just keep moving.
We had keepers from Armenia and two escapes. And they came down, came back with and so we showed them all the sites as we walked through. Then they got back on their bus and went back.
Lots of northern buses today got Yeah, massive. Yeah, sorry. I woke up and I was like, I was hallucinating. I was like, this wasn't the plan.
It was a proper dump of snow, wasn't it? All white. Yeah.
Yeah, but we came down from north of Scotland.
We'd have been still in Paddington.
Not down on the sort of low ground, definitely like hills. Yeah. And I'm sitting in the Murray
That's the crazy thing actually. We had our barns up. I was really hot day. I joked to the guy in the barn. I went, this is going to be snowing. I went up to the barn.
Swimming in a lock. Is that what
no, it was Murray first.
Oh, okay.
Sean first.
Okay.
get him to be a bit more cool.
Even though they're called a union, it's misleading. Yeah.
And we get all our we need to get the journalists to explain it, because people won't understand. Yeah, my husband's changing the insurance in the cars, and this is 10 years ago. And one of the
Just about 5 minutes is going to kick off if everyone gets comfortable, okay? It's okay, it's not raining or anything, is it?
Funny that.
Has anyone seen Andrew Ward, because we've lost him? He might be under a big pile of food. He's only a little fella. If you look up your feet, look down where you're going. Could be anywhere there. Normally found talking about food. We find you. He's behind you. I'm here. Well, welcome everyone. Amazing, thank you. Now, the numbers have totally exceeded what we actually anticipated. Which unfortunately means we don't think we can march to Parliament Square and back without Don't boo me! Yeah, so with the children going to be leaving it, what we're going to do is we're going to get the children safely around the back of these buildings to the far end with some photographs, so that people can see what we were trying to achieve here. But the numbers have totally outweighed our expectations. Thank you very much for doing that. You did that well done. Thank you so much. Right, we'll crack on. So, welcome to everyone that's watching. Welcome to everyone that's watching online. A lot of people have had to stay behind to look after animals, so we just need to think about them. Thank you to all this team here that's made this happen. Massive thanks to the Met for allowing this to happen and keeping everybody safe. Come on, you can do better than that. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm Ollie Harrison. I'm just an arable farmer from near Liverpool. I never thought one day I'd be stood here talking to so many farmers. My family has farmed in Target for 175 years, with me being the 5th generation, and James dreaming of being the 6th. He's slightly confused. The guy with hats fell over his eyes. Me and my father and my ancestors have worked tirelessly over them years to build the farm we're in today. But for now, I could be the last generation to produce food on that land. The government has taken the ability away for me to be able to pass the family farm on in a financially stable way for my 3 children. That makes me so angry, and I know I'm not the only one here today. We all know no one owns a farm. We just look after it for the next generation. I'm really sorry, I had to write all this down so I didn't forget it. I don't normally like the script. Being dyslexic, I can't read either. This reckless budget has already cost some lives. Given that where we are today, by the war memorials, someone's phone's ringing. Can we please just hold a minute's silence to remember those that aren't with us anymore? And those that fed us during 2 world wars. So we'll just take a moment. Thank you. Now, why do we farm? Why do we accept low prices? Why do we put up with low wages and long hours? Why do we risk the family home every day? Why do we put up with this weather? We actually ordered this today, so everyone felt at home. I'll tell you why. We farm for our children. We farm to feed the nation. We farm because it's in our blood. And we farm because we love it. No one does it for the money. There is none. I hope you heard that. Is today the beginning of the end for UK farming? Or is it the beginning of some direct action? To save this farming community we all love, that feeds this nation every day, 365 days a year. Some of you may watch our YouTube videos, and I thank you for that. If you've watched recently, you'd know my dad isn't in the best of health. That is why he couldn't be here today. We really did want to have 3 generations here. It would be hard enough to lose a loved member of my family. It would be even harder to lose a business that me and him have built together. Nothing more than a family farm tax, political greed.
They think they can replace us with importing food. They can't. Feeding a nation on imported food is a dangerous place to be for any country. Just ask them over there. That's the MOD. They understand the importance in food in keeping a nation running. Remember as well, for every pound we spend on importing food, we may never see that back in our economy. Think about that, please, Treasury. The government must listen. Do they know what it's like to get up at 4 AM to feed cows and get food on? Do they know what it's like to give CPR to a weak lamb? Do they know what it's like to unblock a combine at 2 AM with bleeding hands and knuckles because of a thistle in it? Do the government even know where food comes from? Today we come together to show the government we will be heard. Let's unite all businesses that rely on farming. Let's unite all businesses that cannot pass their hard work to the next generation because of this appalling budget. We will not be taxed into bankruptcy. We will not be bribed with political rhetoric. Downing Street, if you can hear us, you need to fix this. For the nation, you have to do this to feed the voters that trusted you. You have to do it for our children. And you have to do it for our grandchildren. Thank you.
Every single one of you. We had no idea what we started just a week or 10 days ago. You're here to make clear this is an impossible family farm tax. British farmers cannot pay this. That's better. Just start again.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, every single one of you. You're here to make clear this is an impossible family farm tax for British farmers to pay. I think we're making pretty clear that this doesn't just affect 500 farms. This affects the, 10, 20,000 of you that are here, not counted. More? Can't see the back, so yeah, that's a lot. We're here to demonstrate that the government have just got their numbers wrong on this. Very wrong. To demonstrate that family farms, the very foundation of our beautiful British countryside, will be lost forever. The investment will disappear. Our food security will be threatened, and our environment will undoubtedly suffer. Our countryside will end up being owned by the huge institutional and corporate investors that the APR was supposed to stop. I farm the same fields as my grandfather and father did, and I just want my children, Henry, is it his name?
Hello.
This is about these guys, it's this generation, it's their opportunity to farm that's been taken away. Bear with me. The tax bill, when my father dies, is just unaffordable. The returns on the capital that we have invested in farming, they just don't provide the kind of income that can cover that 20%. So I'll have to sell. We're here today. We need the politicians to sit down, to look again at how can they achieve their aims without engineering this destruction of family farms. We want them to meet with us, actual farmers, sit down with us and let us show them how to fix British farming. How to make it great, how to make it sustainable. Let us show you what the generations of knowledge that should be listened to, understood and supported to help grow both our nation's food and the economy.
Hello everybody, I'm Andrew Ward, I farm in Lincolnshire, and like Ollie as well, I also have a YouTube channel. It's a pity those people behind those gates don't watch it a bit more. Thank you so much for everybody that's coming here today. The view we have from up here is unbelievable. And talking about emotional, I had tears in my eyes when I came up here about half an hour ago. Thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it, but we will support you. The five of us that put this together, we have all had a job to do. My job was to look after the food bank and try to get food brought into London. We have had that in tons, and I mean tons. And the idea was to highlight and bring food. The idea was to show the capital just how much value
a figure well above the national average. The Better Health North Somerset team do amazing work to promote good oral health, but regular dentist checkups are the oral health silver bullet. Could the Minister explain and outline the work he is doing to ensure that children in Western, Wirral and across the country get the dentistry service they so desperately need?
Absolutely right to raise this vital issue, and prevention, of course, is always better than cure. So I'm very proud of the fact that we're introducing supervised toothbrushing for 3 to 5-year-olds in the most deprived communities and where there's most unmet need. And of course, we're also working to sort out the NHS contracts so that we can ensure that children get the care they need.
We come to James Wilde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having training locally at the University of East Anglia is important for my constituents. But in the short term, what steps is the Minister taking to speed up the process by which dentists get on the dental performing list so they can work in the NHS and not just privately? And is he also considering bringing in a provisional overseas registration scheme?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question. We are looking at provisional registration. As I also mentioned to his honourable friend earlier, we're very open to the idea of a dental training school at the University of East Anglia. We need to ensure that we push on the full spectrum of all of these measures because there is a crisis in NHS dentistry and we need to get on and fix it.
Senator Bessington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency, Toothless in Huntingdon have written to me highlighting that 36% of patients under Cambridgeshire and Peterborough integrated care system no longer have an NHS dentist. They want dental practice to provide access to those needing emergency treatment and a priority pathway for referrals from hospital departments such as cardiology and oncology. To that extent, what steps are being taken in Huntingdonshire to improve dental access across rural Cambridgeshire, and how is the government helping Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Integrated Care Board to address these issues?
Well, I thank him. Obviously, the Golden Hello scheme for rural areas is very important. That's something that we're pushing forward on. I'm pleased to say that the hundreds have expressed interest in it and appointments are starting on that basis. He's right about training places. As I've already mentioned, we are very open to establishments, institutions coming forward with proposals for that. What I would say to him is we're living in a country where the biggest cause of hospital admission for 5 to 9-year-olds is to have their rotten teeth removed. It is a truly Dickensian state of affairs and something that needs to be fixed as a priority.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier this year, I visited an orthodontist that carries out work on behalf of the NHS. The issue that they were saying was that when they have people referred to them by their general dentist, they then can't go on to do the orthodontic work because their teeth are in too bad a state, but they're referred back to the dentist but can't get in because of waiting lists and issues. So when we're looking at reforming dental contracts, we'll be looking at orthodontic ones too.
I thank him for that question. Absolutely, as my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, has said, we've already met a number of times with the BDA and no issues are off the table. We absolutely need to look at orthodontists in the round as part of the contract negotiations, and we'll certainly be reporting back on that in due course.
Tristan Osborne.
Question number 9, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to take questions 9 and 22 together. Before the election, we made it clear that it was investment and reform that was needed in the NHS. The Chancellor announced the investment of the budget, and since the general election, we've confirmed introducing new league tables of NHS providers, with high-performing providers being given greater freedom over funding and flexibility, sending turnaround teams into struggling hospitals, giving the best performers greater freedoms over funding to modernise technology and equipment. We're creating a new college of executive and clinical leadership that will help attract, keep and support the best NHS leaders. We're banning NHS trusts from using agencies to hire temporary entry-level workers in bands 2 and 3, such as healthcare assistants and domestic support workers. We're sending crack teams of top clinicians to areas with long waiting lists and high economic inactivity to improve the productivity of their clinics, and we're running a GP red tape challenge to slash bureaucracy. I could go on, Mr. Speaker, because this is a government that's walking the talk on NHS reform.
I think you already have, but there we are, Tristan Osborne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I wish you would go on. But irresponsible promises were made by the opposition around capital investment into hospitals and elective surgeries across the country, and including in the 3 Medway constituencies. Can I ask my right honourable friend whether he will meet with me and my colleagues from Rochester, Stroud and Gillingham and Rainham to discuss the much-needed NHS investment in our area?
Mr Speaker, I'd be delighted to meet with my honourable friend and other members from across Medway to discuss the challenges that are facing their part of the South East and, of course, to explain why it was that our predecessors made promises they couldn't keep, with timetables that were completely fictitious and funding that runs out in March. I'm really sorry at the way that communities were let down by the previous government. This government won't make the same mistakes.
Kevin Bonavia.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm grateful to my friend, the Secretary of State, for his earlier answer. Last week, I spoke to one of my constituents, Norman Phillips, who has been an unpaid carer for his wife, Ros, for the past 18 years. Like many unpaid carers across Stevenage, Norman has been put through absolute hell by the complete inaction on social care from over 14 years of the previous Tory government. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that unpaid carers like Norman play a vital role in providing care and that unpaid carers need to be at the very heart of any much-needed reforms to the social care system?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question. I too pay tribute to Norman and family carers like him who play such a vital role supporting loved ones. In the budget, the Chancellor announced with the carers allowance uplift, the largest increase to the weekly earnings limit since the introduction of carers allowance in 1976. And as well as this investment, we will have a 10-year plan for social care, and I see the care workforce, care providers and family carers all being important partners in building that plan.
Jeremy Hunt.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I welcome the Secretary of State's plans to reform the NHS, but caution against the idea that the answer is to fire more incompetent managers. The answer is not bad management, but micromanagement from the centre, which sees hospitals managed with more than 100 targets by NHS England, making it one of the most micromanaged healthcare systems in the world. So will his plans have more autonomy for managers to help them innovate, save money and improve care for patients?
I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman for that question, and I'm happy to confirm it is my view that when you have too many targets and you're measuring everything, you end up measuring nothing. That we need to give more freedom and autonomy to good leaders and more clinical leaders and managers in the NHS who are coming up with some of the best productivity gains in the system. That's why we've announced new support and investment in College the College of Leadership for both clinical leaders and executive leaders in the NHS. I'd be delighted to meet with him to discuss those issues. He was a great chair of the Select Committee. But I would also just say to the right honourable gentleman, that back in July we saw a really great example of how you can improve things by sacking bad managers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the lessons from the pandemic is the importance of NHS communications. Last week I joined victims of the sodium valproate scandal to hand in a petition. They tried to download from the website the MHRA yellow card, adverse drug reaction literature, and they were unable to do so. So will the Secretary of State look at this as a matter of urgency, because people need to be warned about the risks of taking certain drugs?
I'm really grateful to the honourable gentleman for that question. As he knows, I am a great champion of patient power, and a key part of giving patients more power and control over their healthcare is better access to information. That's why, as well as improvements to the NHS app, which will provide far easier interaction with the NHS for patients, I'm also working with my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, to make sure that all of the information held by government is better accessible for our citizens, particularly where that includes, as he mentions, vital safety information and guidance.
Pamela Nash.
Question number 10, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thanks to the decisions that the Chancellor took at the budget, we're able to provide an additional £26 billion to give the NHS the funding it needs. This will support the NHS in England with the ability to deliver an extra 40,000 more appointments a week to cut waiting lists. And of course, for my honourable friend and her constituents, the budget has given Scotland the biggest real-term increase in funding through the Barnett formula since devolution began. I hope the Scottish Government will use this investment to deliver improved services for the Scottish people.
Nash.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
The Labour Party is the party of the NHS, and the significant additional investment that was announced in the recent budget has reaffirmed this. The Secretary of State, Mr Speaker, has made it very clear in this question session that the benefits of this additional funding must be felt across the UK. So can I ask my right honourable friend to join me in urging the Scottish Government to ensure that that funding does reach the front line and creates the badly needed additional appointments in GP, dental and hospital services that my constituents and across Scotland badly need?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for her question, and it is thanks to the people of Scotland sending 37 Labour members of Parliament at the last election that not only have they shown that they value the NHS and are demanding change, they voted for change. We're now delivering it thanks to the budget. And so I say to Scottish Government ministers, I said, as they know, before the election, all roads lead to Westminster. We all suffered under Conservative government. Well, now that road is carrying this year an extra £1.5 billion to the Scottish Government. Next year, it will carry an extra £3.4 billion to the Scottish Government. So they've got no excuses not to act.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Approximately 220,000 people currently reside in Solihull Borough, and if government planning reforms go through, these numbers will increase significantly. My honourable friend, the member for Solihull West and Shirley, and I have written to the Health Secretary to discuss the need for infrastructure and A&E services at Solihull Hospital. Will he agree to meet with us to see how we can make this budget work for the people of Solihull?
Mr Speaker, I know that, not least because of the mismanagement of the NHS under the last 14 years, that communities right across the country, including his constituents in Solihull, are struggling with poor services and crumbling estates. We'd be happy to receive representations from the honourable gentleman, but he has to level with his constituents. If he wants money spent in his community, then he must support the investment and be honest about the fact that he's supporting the means of raising it. And if he doesn't support the means of raising it, he should tell us where that investment would come from.
Let's say we've been very slow to get to topicals. Let's see if we can speed it up. Dan Tomlinson will be a good example.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, this weekend we launched the first in-person consultation as part of change.nhs.uk, the biggest national conversation about the future of the NHS we've ever seen. Of course, we know the Leader of the Opposition wants a conversation about whether the NHS is free at the point of use, and I can tell her from that first conversation, no one agreed with her.
Dan Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Earlier this month, I visited Barnet Hospital to see the way in which they're changing the emergency care department there so that more patients can get seen more quickly, freeing up capacity in accident and emergency. So let me ask the Secretary of State what steps this government is taking to ensure that trusts like the Royal Free and trusts across the country can get their support they need through investment and reform to improve patient care.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question. The Royal Free Hospital saved my life when I went through kidney cancer, so it holds a special place in my heart. And thanks to the Chancellor's decision and the investment she's put in to the NHS at the budget, the reform my department's delivering, we will deliver the change, the improvement that his constituents and mine and the country deserve.
Secretary of State Ted Agar.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Secretary of State knows that every year, irrespective of the party in government, winter is challenging for the NHS. Possibly all the more so this year with the potential impact on older people's health of the loss of the winter fuel allowance by many. So as previous governments have done in the past, what winter preparedness steps has he taken to increase A&E capacity and to increase the number of beds this winter, and by how many?
Mr Speaker, it is thanks to this government and the action that we've taken that for the first time in 3 years we go into winter without the spectre of national strikes looming over the NHS, with NHS staff on the front line, not the picket line. It is thanks to the priority this government has given to prevention that we have now almost 15 million COVID-19 and flu vaccinations already delivered. This alongside the new RSV vaccination to help vulnerable groups for the first time. He mentions the winter fuel allowance. This government is protecting support for the poorest pensioners to protect them not just this winter, but every winter. And over the coming years, of course, the value of the pension will rise with the cost of living.
Come on, Ware.
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful, but I fear that was another example of the government, just as my honourable friends have highlighted in respect to the damaging impact of employer NICS increases on GPs, hospices and care providers, simply not answering the question and not having a plan yet. So either the government haven't done their homework and, as with the impact of Nick's increases, haven't thought this through and don't know, or worse, the government don't care. Which is it?
Mr. Speaker, this government is prepared for winter. We are already standing up the operational response to winter pressures. On this question of funding, Mr. Speaker, he was in government just before the general election. Is he saying that his government didn't provide enough funding for the NHS this winter? If not, why not? And if he does accept that it's enough money, he'll surely welcome the extra investment the Chancellor's putting into the NHS from next year.
Dr. Lawrence Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. What steps are the ministers taking to address the ongoing shortages of ADHD medications, which have been going on now for 18 months? Thank you.
I thank her for her question. The Department has been working with suppliers of medicines used to treat ADHD to seek commitments from them to address the issues, expedite deliveries and boost supplies. We are working with NHS England to improve the modelling for industry and communications regarding ADHD medicine supply issues, and we will continue to engage with industry to address the remaining issues as quickly as possible.
Helen Morgan, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
The Conservatives' disastrous legacy on dentistry meant that over 4.4 million children haven't seen a dentist in the last year, and certainly in Shropshire, dentists continue to hand back their contracts, including one in Wem in recent weeks. Can the Minister outline what his plan is to reverse this terrible decline and to ensure that in rural areas where there are dental desert problems, that is going to be addressed?
Thank her for that question. 700,000 extra urgent appointments, golden hellos, and a 3 to 5 year old prevention and supervised toothbrushing scheme for 3 to 5 year olds.
Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of my constituents are worried that online GP appointments are too often being used as a substitute for face-to-face consultation, which risks adding pressures on NHS waiting lists further down the line. Could the Minister reassure my constituents they will receive timely, in-person GP access and the quality of care they deserve? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for that question. We all know general practice is under enormous pressure, and they will be a big part of this government's agenda. I want to reassure her our view is patient choice, patient control, different courses for different horses. I value online or over the phone appointments, but that won't be right for everyone in every occasion, and patients should have a voice and a say.
Lincolnshire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently met a GP who was in the market to hire a new 7 to 8 session GP to meet demand. Following the budget and the increase in the national insurance contribution for employers, he can now only afford a 3 to 4 session GP. What advice does the Secretary of State have for my friend the GP?
I would say to GPs who are thinking about staffing for the next financial year, hold tight and wait for funding allocations shortly so that they can make informed decisions about staffing and care for patients.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the doorstep in Bristol North East, people regularly talk to me about the difficulties that they have getting a GP appointment. So can the Minister assure primary care services in my constituency, like the Kingswood Health Centre, that the budget will help them and marks the first steps in transforming our NHS?
I thank him. We've pledged to bring back the family doctor, and we've already invested an additional £82 million in the additional roles reimbursement scheme to recruit 1,000 more newly qualified GPs in 24-25. We're also committed to fixing the front door of the NHS, for example, through £100 million of capital funding that was announced in the budget. We're fully aware, though, of the pressures, and we will set out further details on funding allocations for next year in due course.
Charlie Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please can the Secretary of State give a clear date by when QR codes will be incorporated into the NHS app at the point of care, thereby making the process faster and safer, as highlighted to me by Dr. Steve Bright at the Windrush Health Centre in Witney?
I might resist the invitation to give him a specific date today, Mr. Speaker, but he makes a valuable point about the ease of use of the NHS app, and I'll write to him further on that point.
Mark Ferguson.
Speaker, Usher syndrome is a rare inherited disease that can lead to both deafness and blindness. And as the chair of the APPG, I've met with many of those who suffer with Usher syndrome. So what assessments has the department made of the adequacy of support for those suffering from Usher syndrome and also their family members?
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. The UK Rare Diseases Framework aims to improve the lives of people living with all rare diseases. I'm more than prepared, Mr Speaker, to meet with my honourable friend so that we can look at the adequacy of support available to people with Usher syndrome.
Sir Ollie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last Friday, I met with GPs at the Fairhill Medical Practice in North Kingston in my constituency, and they've told me that the increase in national insurance contributions is going to add £50,000 a year to their costs. Can the Secretary of State tell me whether GPs can expect to see, across the board, a cut in the NICs payable by GPs to help them manage to continue to deliver services for families in the area?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We've not yet announced allocations for general practice the year ahead, and of course we're taking into account all of the pressures that general practice is under.
On to Becky Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The renewed focus on prevention in our health system is very welcome, but under the previous government, the public health grant that facilitates much of this work was cut by 28%. Has the Minister, in partnership with the Treasury, considered when we might be able to address this public health funding issue, essential for enabling progress in prevention?
We'll confirm the 2025-26 Local Authority Public Health Grant allocations in due course. Local government, though, Mr Speaker, plays a critical role in delivering the government's health mission and driving action on prevention of ill health, and we're committed to working in partnership with them to tackle the wider determinants of ill health.
Martin Wrigley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I've been shocked this week by all of the major GP groups in my constituency detailing their financial situations. They're all close to the edge, considering options of bankruptcy, redundancies, or handing in their contracts. What urgent respite can the SOS give them?
I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for that question. I'm in no doubt about the state that general practice was left in by our Conservative predecessors. That's why in making decisions about funding allocations the year ahead, we're taking into account all of the pressures that general practice is under as we're cleaning up the mess left by the party opposite.
MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In summer 2023, I spoke to Rachel, who suffers from endometriosis. She was told she might have to wait 18 months for urgent surgery. She is still waiting. In fact, she has had the menopause induced to help tackle her symptoms. Can the Minister tell me what the government is doing to improve the diagnosis and treatment of women like Rachel who have had to wait far too long?
Minister.
She makes an excellent point on behalf of Rachel and many other women suffering from this disease. We are looking urgently at gynaecological waiting lists. They are far too high, including for endometriosis. I welcome the new NICE guidelines. Women's health hubs, we will be looking at those and how they work, and future guidelines will also help women get a diagnosis more quickly and help with her situation.
Mr Speaker, respiratory health conditions are one of the main drivers of NHS winter pressures. Yet only 32% of asthma sufferers in Bath and across the country actually can access the most basic level of care. What will the government do to improve access to basic level of care for the 68% of asthma sufferers who are currently missing out?
Mr Speaker, NICE is currently reviewing its guidelines for the diagnosis, monitoring and management of chronic asthma, and an updated version is due to be published in late November 2024. I am happy to meet with the Honourable Lady to discuss further.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Women with spinal cord injuries face significant challenges in accessing core health services, including breast screening, cervical screening and gynecological care. Research shows that women with disabilities, including spinal cord, are 30% less likely to attend routine breast screening appointments, in significant part due to the physical inaccessibility of the screening equipment. Will the Minister meet with me and reps of the APPG for spinal cord injuries to discuss these unacceptable disparities and ensure that women receive the equitable and accessible care they deserve?
He highlights a shocking example of accessibility for these important services, and I will make sure that the Department responds to him, and myself or my Minister, Courier colleague, will absolutely meet with him.
Stuart Anderson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Ludlow Community Hospital in my constituency provides a great service for the local community, but it's restricted by its location and its building. There is a business model that will be more cost-effective long-term to move the facility to the Eco Park. And would the Secretary of State meet with me, healthcare stakeholders and also the League of Friends in Ludlow to take this forward?
I'm grateful to the honourable member for his question. He is very welcome to make representations to the department for the capital investment that he is calling for, but of course he should also welcome the means of providing it, which was the Chancellor's decision in the budget.
Neil Coyle.
This is for their leadership to tackle the record waiting times inherited from the Tories, but can they in turn recognise Guy's and St Thomas's efforts to reduce delays, especially the ENT and paediatric spinal surgery teams? But can the Secretary of State outline measures to protect our NHS from cyber attacks, another issue neglected by the last government but affecting patients in Southwark?
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for his question and pay tribute to the work being done by Guy's and St Thomas's. He is absolutely right to raise this issue of cybersecurity. That's why both the capital investment announced by the Chancellor is welcome and necessary, and why joint working across government, including with security colleagues and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, is absolutely vital to keep patients' data information safe and to keep critical systems running.
Lee Dillon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Speaker. When the Secretary of State reviews GP funding, will you also consider the burden that sits on GP practices when they have to hold the lease for their surgery, and what role integrated care boards could have for holding that risk, which is stopping recruitment of GPs joining practices as partners?
I thank him for that question. NHS England currently only accepts ICBs holding leases as a last resort or by exception due to significant capital required. While we know that's not the most effective use of ICB resources, it's an important safeguard. We're committed to fixing the front door of the NHS by supporting GPs and ICBs, for example, through the £100 million of capital funding that was announced at the budget for GP estate upgrades.
Jacob Collier.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My constituent, Ollie Horrobin's life has been completely transformed after contracting COVID, leaving him wheelchair-bound with a feeding tube and battling debilitating symptoms every single day. His story is a stark reminder of the devastating impact that long COVID can have. Will the Minister commit to meeting with me and Ollie to hear his experience firsthand and prioritise further research into the causes, treatments and long-term impacts of extreme long COVID?
Can I thank my honourable friend? As somebody who still suffers from long COVID, I know how debilitating and complex it can be, and I am committed to improving support for people affected. There are now over 100 long COVID services across England, £57 million invested in long COVID research, and I recently co-chaired a roundtable on strategies to stimulate further research into treatments. I'm more than happy to meet my honourable friend and Ollie to discuss further.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.